Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Welcome back. Okay, so one of the other things that's going on is Walgreens. I really don't shop there that much at all, unless unless I'm trying to save time. Everything in there is overpriced. Okay, how that store stays open, I don't know. Okay, but anyway, I'm going to read this article here from Mediate, written by Zachary Lehman. It was published 5 hours ago, and it's entitled "Michael Moore Calls for a Nationwide Walgreens Boycott Over Decision Not to Sell Abortion Pill in Some States, Bigotry and Misogyny." Michael Moore called for a boycott of Walgreens after the company announced it would not sell abortion pills in 20 states where attorney generals have threatened legal action. The Republican attorneys general for 20 states recently threatened legal action against Walgreens if the pharmacy sold mifepristone in their states. Never heard of it. This follows the reversal of Roe v. Wade by the Supreme Court, which has given states far more power in regulating abortion procedures. Moore called the Supreme Court's reversal a, quote, legal whipping of women, unquote, in his Walgreens declaration. On his website, Moore accused the store chain of treating women like, quote, second-class citizens, unquote, with their decision. Quote, this decision by Walgreens to further cement women's status as second-class citizens must be met forcibly by each and every one of us. Every day of our silence since last Thursday is another day of you and I enabling this bigotry and misogyny, unquote, the Canadian bacon filmmaker had written. Moore called for a nationwide boycott until Walgreens reverses their decision. He urged his fans to tell Walgreens they would not shop there anymore and to issue warnings to other pharmacies who may follow the chain's lead. Quote, let Walgreens know you have stopped shopping there. Let the other pharmaceutical chains know you'll do the same to them if they follow Walgreens' lead. Picket your local Walgreens, unquote, Moore wrote. Quote, tell the White House to stand strong and let your members of Congress know this is one of your top issues in deciding how you will vote next year, unquote. Moore referred to the Supreme Court as this country's Taliban. Quote, this court's actions have solidified their role as our Taliban, our Church of England, our Spanish Inquisition, unquote. We are now forced to fight our way out of this religious ruling where the majority gender in a democracy must shut the F up and make that fertilized egg into a baby or else, unquote. And that's it, I guess. So, yeah, the fight over, the fallout, rather, from this ruling last year here is still coming down, and people are still pissed off about it. And, really, boycotting Walgreens is not really the answer here, Mr. Michael Moore. I hate to say it. And you really need to send these people protesting to the Supreme Court outside and protest there, because that's where the axe fell from. Okay, that's affecting the whole country. Okay, send the protesters over there, because Walgreens is Walgreens. It's a fucking store. It's going to do what it wants. They might get one or two stores to reverse their decision, but ultimately they're still going to do what they want. Okay, so if you really want to undo this bed of fucking hell that's been created by the Supreme Court, then go to the Supreme Court and protest out there. That's where the voice matters. Trying to get all these individual stores to zip up their fly after what they've done is, you're not going to get them all to agree with that. In fact, they'll just call the cops and have the fucking road cleared out in front of their parking lot. They're not going to bother listening to you. It's not going to matter. You shut down, let's say in your wettest dream that all this protesting actually shuts down all the Walgreens in the country. Okay, so who's left to go protest then? that decides. You're going to go after Rite Aid, you're going to go after Walmart, you're going to go after all these other places that sell pills like that. I mean, where does it end? Okay, that would be a cause that's never ending. As long as the Supreme Court keeps what they did alive, okay, then you're going to be fighting these little stores for the rest of your life, you know. So go to the Supreme Court, do your shouting, your protesting, your sign carrying, do all that shit over there, because that's where the axe fell from. Okay, that's where it goes. Okay, I'm sorry, Michael Moore, I'm not trying to piss on your parade, but the fact is you're telling people to go in the wrong direction here. You need to send them to the fucking source of all this, and that's Washington, D.C., the Supreme Court. Okay, send them over there. Get buses, line up some damn buses all around the country and get them to go over there. Okay, put 2-3 million people out on the fucking grounds screaming their heads off at the Supreme Court. Okay, because that's where they're going to sweat the bullets. Hell, that's what the damn Republicans would do if this was something that was taken away from them. They wouldn't be going to every damn gun shop in America and protesting in front of them for not selling automatic rifles. They'd go to the Supreme Court where the Democrats had put the ban on them or something. Okay, that's where they'd take their argument. Okay, be smart. Be smart here. And to show that this trend here that Marjorie Taylor Greene is following on is not just exclusive to her, during CPAC they had a speaker say some pretty nasty Nazi sort of thing here. This is from the Daily Dot. CPAC speaker upset his calls to eradicate trans ideology from public life deemed genocidal. This was written by David Cavusi. In 2020, the Conservative Political Action Committee, CPAC, unwittingly helped seed a deadly movement in America, as it was one of the first places COVID-19 ran rampant. 3 years later, CPAC was accused of being at it again, only this time much more openly. Michael Knowles, who works at the Daily Wire, one of the right-wing's leading anti-trans publications, said in a speech on Saturday at the conference that the ideology behind the transgender movement needed to be eradicated. Numerous publications in the wake of his speech deemed that rhetoric genocidal. Quote, "There can be no middle way in dealing with transgenderism," unquote, he said on Saturday. Quote, "It is all or nothing. If it is false, then for the good of society, transgenderism must be eradicated from public life entirely, the whole preposterous ideology at every level," unquote. Anti-transgender ideology was one of the main themes of the CPAC, one of the largest yearly gatherings of conservatives. CPAC hosted Chaya Raichik, better known as Libs of TikTok, for one of her first public appearances since she started the viral anti-trans account. Raichik's account has been accused of helping spur real-world violence, including armed members of far-right groups showing up at events to protect children. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene used CPAC to announce a new bill that would, quote, "make it a felony to perform anything to do with gender-affirming care on children," unquote. While CPAC's speakers seemed to top themselves with anti-trans rhetoric, Knowles' speech received by far the most attention. And as he also took the most offense when outlets covered his comments, Knowles called for retractions and accused publications of libel over their stories, which took his use of the word eradicate to imply that he was essentially calling for a genocide of trans people. Quote, "This headline is libelous and I demand a retraction," unquote, Knowles wrote with an image of a Rolling Stone article that says, quote, "CPAC speaker calls for transgender people to be eradicated," unquote. The vice president of PR at the Daily Wire similarly called for other outlets that wrote about Knowles' words to update their piece, including Huffington Post and the Daily Beast. The three outlets updated the headlines on their pieces, and Knowles said he was pleased. But Knowles' quibble that he was calling for an ideology to be removed from society and not mentioning what should become of its adherents, resurfaced some recent comments he made about how he didn't think trans people could be the victims of a genocide because, in his mind, they didn't exist. Quote, they said I was calling for the extermination of transgender people. They said I was calling for a genocide. Did I say that? I don't know how you could have a genocide of transgender people because genocide refers to genes. It refers to genetics. Transgender people is not a real ontological category. It's not a legitimate category of being, unquote. Knowles' comments in that appearance came in wake of backlash to words similar to his CPAC stance that transgenderism must be, quote, banned entirely, unquote. In response to Knowles' claim that he'd been misrepresented and that hyperbolic internet headlines were unfair, a number of users online thought it would be instructive to swap out Knowles' use of the phrase transgenderism and see what it sounded like. Michael Knowles might be surprised to discover that, quote, I said Judaism must be eradicated, not Jewish people must be eradicated, unquote, wrote one user. Knowles did not respond to a request for comment by the Daily Dot. So here we got a guy dancing very close to what people are saying sounds like Adolf Hitler here. I mean, about how he's sounding like, we need to eradicate the Jews and all this shit that went on back in the 1930s, to get people to side with him. I mean, if you don't get people angry, okay, and you don't give people a target for their anger, then they're just going to be angry people, and they're not going to understand why they're angry. But if you make them angry, and then you say that's the reason why you should be angry, then all of a sudden now they have a target for their anger. And that is what people are trying to tell this jackass here, is that when you say stuff like that to anger up the public, what you're basically saying is go after them. Go stone them. Go burn their houses down. Go after them. These people don't even exist. So it's not like you're killing them because they don't exist. Okay, that's what people are trying to say. When you diminish a whole group of people into being non-existent, what do you think people are going to say to that? They're going to go after these folks. Hitler said as much the same thing about the Jews. They don't exist. They're not even people. Okay, they're the scum of the earth and all. That made it okay for people to spit on them, and even little kids to kick them in the shins and throw rocks at them and, call them nasty names, okay? Because the kids even heard it, So this is how you quietly open a door, okay, to allowing hatred to become genocide or whatever you want to call it, okay? Whether he defines it that way or not, that's essentially what he's doing, is he's replaying history. Except this time we're going after the transgender people and not the Jews or something. But Jews will always be hated, no matter where they go, unfortunately. That's just how it is. I don't know why that is. I don't understand why they have this fucking dark cloud over them wherever they go and why people hate them so much. But I don't know. It's just bullshit as far as I'm concerned. But, and the other point is what Michael is saying is that he's looking at this from the physical aspect, like saying, well, there are no such things as transgender, either male or female. Well, that's true as far as the body is concerned, but we're not talking about the body when we're talking about transgender. We're talking about people that don't see themselves as being either male or female or one or the other, or they don't feel like if they have the body of a man, that they feel like a man. You know what I'm saying? It's more than just a body identification. It's also how you feel inside. Do you feel like a man? Do you feel more like a woman? You know what I'm saying? There's things, about the mind that we don't understand. And because we don't understand the mind and how it works, we can't quantify it to a thing that we can understand and say that, oh, that's the reason. Okay, that's where the problem lies. Okay, we can't see that. So all we can do is look at the body and say, well, if you're born with something between your legs, this way or that way, this is what your gender is supposed to be. Okay, and all this crap about you telling everybody that you're this is just bad. You've been raised, abusively, and you've been, taught all the wrong things, brainwashed, whatever they say, okay? That's the reason why you're like that. And the reason they say that is because they don't understand. They don't talk to these people that don't identify with their physical sexuality. Okay, they don't sit down for 5 minutes and just talk to these people and keep an open mind. They can't do it. They can't let themselves hear it or listen and try to understand it. They can't afford that, because to them that's sinful. You don't talk to these people because they're too busy trying to indoctrinate you. That's why they don't want their kids hanging around with them. Okay, they're trying to put a wall so thick between, in our society, between what they consider is normal people against the transgender people, who they can't understand because they don't want to understand it. All right, so they put that wall there, and it makes it very difficult for them to listen, to listen to the science behind it. Because for one thing, hey, they don't even like science. That's why they're trying to keep kids from learning anything about science as well as history. All right? To them, science only comes out of the Bible, and it ain't even science. Okay? All you need to know about the world is what's in the Bible, according to them. Okay? Doesn't matter that a bunch of human beings wrote stories and compiled it all into one book. Okay? Doesn't matter at all that some of these people were just very gifted writers or something, or trying to say something moralistically in the book, but had no bearing at all on reality. Okay? Doesn't matter at all to them. To them, that book is final. Okay? That is the book. That tells everything. Okay? If that's what you want to hail up as your basis for living, hey, knock yourself out. God only knows. We got a lot of other people who are just as diehard about other things as some folks are with religion. But the thing is that when you close your mind off to the world and keep your mind embedded in one train of thought, you're missing out on life, my friend. Okay, you're missing a lot of things, and you're going to be going through life hating a lot of different people for a lot of different things, and you're not going to be a very happy camper. And certainly you're going to want to try to force the world to make sense to you, which is what Republicans do all the time, it seems. They can't stand the world as it is because it makes no sense to them, so they try to force it to make sense to them by, invading people's privacy, creating laws to stop people from doing that. This is what they want to do. They want to force people to live in this narrow corridor all their life, because that way it makes more sense to the few who can't stand a society that's doing things they don't understand. Okay? That's what this is all about. And people like this guy here, and he's, and it's funny, it's always these young men in their late 20s and 30s that would agree with that, okay? So it makes me wonder, what the hell were they learning as they were growing up at home, okay? These are people that are half my age, and they're going around saying this nasty shit here. And they just, they really, they don't understand, I think. They really don't understand how divisive they sound when they talk like that. When you get a stage CPAC, okay, yeah, even though it's CPAC and only Republicans are going to be interested in listening to anything that comes out of their mouth, it does get in, the more controversial parts will get airtime, so other people will see it. And that influences people's thinking. It does. Okay? And I know the media is going to bash me over the head for saying this, but what they do put out there, one way or the other, okay, pro this or anti that, does affect people's perception of things. Okay? And the proof of that is January the 6th. Here you had a whole bunch of people that were listening to media, getting internet data, getting television data, getting all kinds of data from all the wrong sources. Okay? People getting all the stuff that influenced the way they felt and way they thought about Donald Trump and about what happened to him and all this stuff. And then before you know it, you got a mob of people outside your Capitol beating the living shit out of the building and killing cops and everybody else that stood in their way. Okay? That's proof right there that people can be manipulated by the media. And so when somebody like this guy, Michael Knowles, gives a speech, that sounds like he wants to wipe out a whole segment of society because he can't understand it. Okay, that translates into some people's head as a green light to go ahead and do what you want with these people, because, hey, if this guy can't understand him, then why the fuck should we try to understand him? Because he's smarter than we are, at least that's what they think. Anybody that stands up in front of a camera and talks is smarter than, but they don't understand how many dingbats have gotten camera attention in this world in their life and always embarrassed themselves, okay? It happens. But the press has to understand that, look, pick and choose the stuff you really want to talk about. Don't just throw everything out there in a pea soup, okay, and expect that the public is going to be smart enough to filter out the bullshit, because apparently they don't. They're not smart enough to filter out the bullshit because they didn't learn how to do that growing up for some reason. Although there's a lot of people in older generations that seem to have that skill and are able to see through the bull crap. But there's a lot of people who can't. They can't decide whether to believe anything or not. So they just absorb it, okay, until something happens where it affirms what they're thinking, okay. So, yeah, that's sort of like what what I was thinking here about this story, is that this is a guy that's just completely misguided, giving a speech and shocking the hell out of people listening to him about what he was saying. And now he's like, oh, I didn't mean it like that. Yeah, bull crap, you didn't. They got you on video, verbatim, okay, your own words recorded, and, you're trying to redefine what you said, okay? It wasn't taken out of context. It was just as it was, okay? And now you're trying to say you meant it a different way. No, you didn't think you was going to get that kind of backlash is what it was, and you got scared. That's what that was about. Okay, so this other story from Rolling Stone, entitled "Texas Republican Introduces Bill Calling for a Vote on Secession." This was published 3 hours ago. Texas State Representative Brian Slayton has introduced a bill that would place a referendum for Texas as a secession from the United States on the 2024 ballot. HB 3596 would allow Texans to vote on whether or not the state should investigate the possibility of Texas independence and present potential plans to the legislature. In a statement released on Twitter, Slayton wrote that, quote, after decades of continuous abuse of our rights and liberties by the federal government, it is time to let the people of Texas make their voices heard, unquote. Go ahead and do it, please. You know what I'm saying? Your state is a fucking disaster, and if you guys want it to have your way down there, go, by all means, secede. Okay, so the rest of the country can sit back and look at what republicanism is all about. Please, go ahead and do it. I hope to Christ you guys do this, because the rest of this country is going to learn a huge lesson from your arrogance down there. Okay? I really hope they do that, because I think that that's what this country needs, because we always learn, the best way for us to learn as people is for us to fall flat on our face and pick ourselves up. We don't bother to look back at history to find out what was done before that made a mistake. We just keep doing the same thing, expecting a different result. Okay? So I say yes, it's time that somebody should take the fall for the rest of the country. Let Texas secede from the rest of the United States, so that way we can watch what happens to a state run by Republicans, okay, to fall flat on its ass. Okay, and show the rest of the country that, hey, our Republican policies don't work, because they don't have any policies, and they don't care about the people in their state. Okay, they're going to just let it, go straight to hell. They're gun-loving nuts all down there, blowing each other away. The kids, having to wear bulletproof vests when they go to school. The immigration problem, which they're going to crack down heavily on, that's going to make Texas to be a friggin' communist country as far as Mexico is concerned. People just aren't going to go through that state for any reason, and let them do their abortion ban thing down there and everything. Let's see how long people want to stay there. Okay, but let them try to make their own little government out of that state and see what happens, okay? Because that tell you right now, the rest of the country is going to be very amazed at what they see Texas will turn into. It's not going to be such a wonderful, everything is bigger and better down here, okay? That's not going to be like that anymore. So that's all I got to say about that. And finally today, I wanted to discuss the news that came out, which has been all over the fucking internet here as soon as it was announced that Star Trek Discovery was going to have its next season be its last season, okay? I never liked that fucking show anyway, okay? And if they had put that on Netflix, Netflix would have cut that show off after season 1, okay? I know it, you know it, if you watched it, I know that. If they had put Discovery on regular network like ABC, CBS, it would have been canceled in its first season, okay? The numbers just did not support continuing that show, but Paramount Plus and their arrogance, they said, no, we're going to keep going no matter what, to force people to watch this garbage, just to prove that it is, watchable, okay? But, there's things happening at Paramount now that all the arrogant people who were standing behind Star Trek Discovery, and trying to hail that as the new Star Trek for the next generation, okay, saying that this is better, they've been getting a very slow lesson rather from the fans, okay, that without fans calling on other fans to boycott Star Trek, and there was the word boycott was never really mentioned at all in the Star Trek community when it was talked about with Discovery. Just people saying that, hey, I don't like it, I'm not going to watch it, okay? Apparently, it wasn't just a small group of people. There was a lot of people who didn't like Star Trek Discovery, okay? Sure, there were some that liked it. Hey, I could make a TV show and get at least 5 or 6 people to watch it. It doesn't mean it was such a great show because 5 or 6 people watched it, okay? So that doesn't prove a damn thing. The fact is that so many Star Trek fans were opposed to it because of all the things that they were ripping apart, stepping on during the production of the show and the stories and stuff. That after every season they just kept losing more and more viewers as it kept going on, and it just. They couldn't understand that. They couldn't understand why. They figured that, it's just a bunch of gatekeepers. It's just old fans. They don't want to change and yada, yada, yada. They had all kinds of fucking reasons that didn't really amount to shit as to why this was happening. So they tried, throwing out other things like cartoons, Star Trek cartoons, and, and then they come out with Star Trek Picard. And the first 2 seasons of that was a debacle or a shit, okay? But then they started Strange New Worlds, and that's when things started to change, as far as I could tell with Paramount. They noticed, there's more people watching Strange New Worlds, and some of them are the old fans. They come back to watch, And then all of a sudden, there's a shift going on. They did Star Trek Picard Season 3, and there's more people saying that's closer to the TNG that they remember watching back in the 80s than the first 2 seasons of Picard were, because they brought more of the TNG cast together for this final season of Picard. So now it feels more like a Star Trek The Next Generation finale for all time. I guess that they're not going to do anything more with TNG after this, from what I understand. But it's like the last movie that they should have had done before, they did Nemesis, I guess. I don't know. But there's more people that are, find that appealing. So, and I guess it has a lot to do with the fact that they got so much success with Strange New Worlds, that maybe they're writing this Season 3 in a way that's more episodic than it is serialized, okay? And they're finding out that's a more preferred way of fans wanting to watch this. So maybe that seems like there could be the slow shift going back to where we were. which is going back on the track that, that it's been doing for all these decades before. That maybe they finally are going to acknowledge the fans and say, yeah, okay, we didn't do it right and it wasn't working, and so we're going to have to go back to the way it was if we want to make any money out of this, because Star Trek is their flagship franchise, and if they can't make money with that, they're sunk. They could possibly lose their streaming service if they can't get that situation right. And if I was the president of CBS, I would make sure, damn sure, that these assholes running that would get it straight. What made it so good in the past, and if you find that out, go back to where that was, because that's where we need to be, because it's costing the company all kinds of money. We're pouring down a drain and we're getting no return on. Okay, there's a person here that I know who has a store. He has a small store, and he has like Discovery action figures, and he's been and the same ones have been sitting on his shelf. He's been marking the prices down for months and months, and they're not selling because nobody likes it. Nobody wants these damn figures, and so from that he knows that the show is not a success. Okay, if it was, people would be out there buying this crap up. Okay, so from that he's determined that Discovery is a failure, but Paramount won't admit it. Okay, they just won't admit it because they hadn't admitted it all from the very beginning. Before the show Discovery even started, it was already mired in controversy. They had so many people that came and went behind the production side of things that we couldn't keep up with whose hands the show was in at any given time. Okay, and they were doing reshoots and redos and all kinds of crap. That was bad. That was a lot of red flags here. Okay, when a show is going through all that before it even airs, okay, then there's problems behind the camera, and it showed big time when they put that on TV. So, I'm sorry, they had a lot of good actors on there. Okay, I'm not bitching at the actors. Okay, they were handed what they had to act with. Okay, they did the best they could with the lemons they had to work with. They had some interesting characters. Unfortunately, they weren't used in the right way, and the stories were not written in the style that made Star Trek what it was for those 50 years. Okay, they totally ignored that, trying to change the recipe, if you will, and people don't like that. I mean, if people like eating at McDonald's, and all of a sudden McDonald's decides we're going to change our fish fillets, we're going to change our French fries, then people aren't going to want to eat there anymore, because that was the reason they would go there. They love the taste. Okay, you don't change the shit midway. And in 50 years you haven't figured that out, then you guys don't know a goddamn thing about giving the consumer what they want. That's how you make your money. The customer is always right. And in this case, the fans were dead on right about what they thought about Discovery. And here they're going to say, that's it. No more. This is the last season. So now they're doing reshoots for some of the episodes because they want to try to bring it into a close, at the end of the season. I don't know what they're going to do. They're going to kill everybody off or what? I have no idea. But they're doing reshoots right now. This season was supposed to air this year, but they pushed it up into next year. So that means they're reshooting some episodes so that way they can have this wind down to a final episode, which closes everything. So I ain't unhappy about that, because I didn't like it. I didn't like the show, and even though it had a marginally improved last season, there were 4, I guess. Season 4 was a little better. I just wasn't really all that like, wow, we always, no. And I think that Strange New Worlds was a show that needed to happen, because I think that's where Paramount kind of realized that hey, this is what we should have been doing all along, and the fans were right. And hey, if you want to know when to change something, you just wait. The fans will tell you, okay, when it's okay to change stuff into what Kurtzman wanted and stuff like that. You'll get the okay from the fans if they like it. If they don't, back off. Okay, get your hand right out of it. If you get resistance right from the get-go, then stop what you're doing. Don't fuck around with it anymore. Okay, don't try and keep doing it, trying to prove a point that you're right and the others are. Don't do that. The more you do it, the more angry the viewers get. Okay, that's what Kurtzman didn't understand, is that the more you keep going down that road and not listening to the fans, that's like slapping them in the face when you don't listen to them. It's because of any actor from any of these Star Trek series will tell you it's the fucking audience that made them what they are. Because the audience kept the show alive, kept supporting the show through all these years. It made them into celebrities. It made them into stars. So give the fucking fans what they want. Okay? If they want Star Trek to change, believe me, you'll get, inklings of that in some of the things they say. That's when you'll know. And as far as, Picard Season 3 being the end of it, fine, okay? Because they really screwed it up. The first 2 seasons, I haven't even been watching Season 3, so I don't really know one way or the other how good it is. And personally, I don't really have much interest in watching it. Simply because the same idiots, as far as I know, are still doing the show, and I can't see how it could get any better. Okay, but some people are saying that it is. Okay, and at the same time, I'm thinking, well, that could be Paramount trying to, fluff up, butter our bread. You know what I'm saying? Like they did with the other 2 seasons, trying to build it up into some big thing, and then when people start watching it after the 3rd season, it all falls apart, and everybody's like, "Oh, this was a lousy season," because that's how it always goes. The trend is the first 2 or 3 episodes are good, and then it just kind of nosedives, And so I'm just saying I'm not gonna waste my time, with that. But I still like Strange New Worlds, and I'm eager to see the next season of that come out, because I really like that one. I was reluctant to watch that at first, but I figured, well, this is new actors. This is a new take on an old generation here. Basically, the TOS era, or pre-TOS era, whatever you want to call it. And then they said they had different people working on that. So I was like, okay, I'll watch the first episode. And then I watched the second, and the third, and the fourth. And I was like, well, this isn't bad. This is better than what they've been doing. So I'm likely to watch the next season when it comes out. I'm eager for it, to see what happens with the show. But I certainly, not surprised, and I'm not unhappy that Discovery's finally going to say goodbye here after their season 5 is over and done with. So anyway, that's it for today, and I just hope everybody has a great rest of the week. And please subscribe and comment, and keep your ears open for any COVID-19 news. You might notice maybe some places in the United States are kind of backpedaling some of the precautions and protections that they had in places. But just keep your ears open. Don't be caught with your pants down if this thing flares up again, okay? Because it does mutate, and when it mutates, you want to be on the ball getting your vaccinations. That's important. And just treat each other nice out there. It seems like fighting with each other is the trend these days, but it doesn't have to be if you don't want it to be. You can choose to ignore people when they say things you don't like, or you can engage them and then you give them what they want, because people like that usually want attention, even if it's a negative attention. They want the attention, so don't give them it. If they're out there shouting from the rooftops about things they want to do or something, or just walk on by, pretend they don't even hear them. That irritates them more than anything. So I'll talk to you all later. So take care, everyone.